at the end of John chapter 13, after we've seen Jesus do this wonderful act of humility and servanthood sacrifice to the disciples, washing their feet, we see the counter of that. Judas is outed by Jesus. He knows that Judas is going to betray him, and he identifies Judas as the one who will work against the loving sovereign plans of God. At the very end of the chapter, you see Jesus give this new commandment to his disciples. He says this, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." This is the type of love that Jesus wants us, his disciples, to live in and to walk in. We see the opposite of that in Judas's betrayal of Jesus, but Jesus really calls his disciples to walk in a true love. It's interesting at the start of this, John makes really obvious that Judas isn't with the disciples at this point. He says, when he had gone out, Jesus then said, and gives them the commandment. This commandment to love one another is for the disciples of Jesus. And we might think, well, what's so extraordinary about loving one another? Everyone in the world has a certain level of love. Even the worst of people love something or someone. But Jesus says to love like him. To love like Jesus is totally countercultural. To love like Jesus will stand out, Jesus says. People will literally be able to see that we love Jesus by the way that we love one another. That is a really radical type of love. What does it look like? Well, Jesus says, love like I've shown you. Love with a level of sacrifice. Love in a way that costs yourself. Love in a way that strays over cultural boundaries and moves towards those on the edge of society. Love in a way that brings healing towards people's lives and souls and hearts. Love in a way that truly shines bright in a dark world. Love in a way that shows a humble power. Love in a way that acts ferociously against injustice and stands against those who oppress the oppressed. That kind of love does stand out in the world that Jesus and his disciples lived back then, and the world that Jesus and we live in now. And that is the type of love that he calls us to. Love like Jesus, sacrificially, costly, deeply. And as we do, those around will see that we love him.